This is the UARKFCA Timeout, the podcast where coaches and athletes share what God has done and is continuing to do in their lives. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Emmanuel Crawford in studio today. My brother, how are you today?
Good, how are you?
Good, man. Good. I'm so excited to have you here. I know you got a really cool story to share with us today. And you know what? I think we just start with that, man. What's your story? You're in the FCA studio. Man, what's your testimony? How'd you come to know the Lord and the journey that got you there?
So my life kind of started off crazy. I was born December 4, 2004 in Ghana, Africa, which is a country on the Ivory Coast. And basically lived with my family for a year, my birth family, and then around age 2 got sold into slavery, which is a common practice there due to the poverty levels. And so it's something that a lot of families do so that they can provide for the rest of the family. So I got sold into slavery age 2, and then fast forward like a year or two passes by, and then I end up getting rescued one day when we're out working. A boat comes by, and basically the industry is like fishing. So they'll have like 7 kids on one little like wooden canoe in the middle of the lake, just like catching fish. But not like in the sense of like reel and rod, but like nets in the water.
Sure, yeah.
That kind of stuff. So a boat shows up, and there is like a couple men on the boat from this organization that saves kids from slavery. And one of the men on the boat was the husband of my mom's friend whose son had passed away. And instead of using that opportunity as a way of like sulking or saying, why would God do this to me? She changed her perspective and changed it to, I'm going to use this and be able to help kids around the world and not use this to be a victim. And so she went into starting this organization called Touch a Life, and her husband was there and just felt like the Lord was telling him, like, you need to bring this kid back with you. I have plans for him. And so I get rescued that day, get taken to a home/orphanage in Ghana, and was there for 2 years. And then I ended up meeting my family that I am with right now. And immediately I just knew, like, okay, I'm like, this is my family, and this is sent from something higher than me. And so fast forward to my junior year in high school, my testimony kind of had drifted away. Like, it wasn't something I talked about, just because for a while it was like a sensitive subject, something that I didn't really want to tell a lot of other people, because either they wouldn't believe me or they would feel bad for me, and I didn't want to, have that kind of pressure. But after COVID had kind of swept the world, I just felt like the Lord was calling me to start sharing my testimony. And I had went to my mom and was like, hey, I feel like I'm supposed to start sharing my life story. And she was like, that's crazy, because the Lord has been, telling me that it's time for you to start telling your story.
Wow.
And so we were like, okay, well, we got to go.
Well, it can't get much more clear than that, right?
Yeah. And so out of nowhere, we had a news outlet come to my high school, because I guess they'd figured it out, because I played football in high school. And through that, they kind of, they were like, okay, who's this kid in Oklahoma who's putting up these numbers? And then through that, they found my story, and they were like, can we come do a story on you? And so they showed up. I shared my testimony, had the opportunity to go around Oklahoma talking about, how God had delivered me from this. And the whole point of me starting to tell my story, I felt like the Lord was telling me, I want you to share your story so that other people can see that I can bring them through anything.
Wow. Yeah.
And so as I started sharing my story, I felt like the Lord was telling me, I want you to tell this story from the perspective of a conqueror and not the perspective of a victim. And so I started telling my story, and I was like, at the beginning of every time I talked to people, I said, I don't want you guys to see me as a victim. I want you guys to see me as a conqueror, someone who, through the grace of God, was able to overcome this adversity. And I want you to leave every time I talk knowing that whatever you're going through in life, whatever struggles, whatever addictions, whatever you're going through, that God can ultimately bring you out of it. But you can't allow yourself to put yourself in this box, in this prison, and be a victim to your circumstances. So through God, all things are possible. Through God, whatever you're going through, he will bring you through it.
Wow. Okay, so let me make sure I got the timeline right here. 2 years old, in slavery for 2 years, casting nets out on a canoe in the middle of a lake somewhere. Somebody comes and gets you, somebody that ends up being a very important connection in your life. Then you go to an orphanage for 2 more years. So you're 6 before your family shows up and you end up coming back to the United States. So 4 years of I don't know if that's uncertainty or discomfort. I mean, like, you know, I know most people would probably think like, well, like maybe you'd say an orphanage has got to be better than slavery, but I mean, neither one of those is ideal circumstances, right? I mean, not to compare apples and oranges here, but like that's a long time of waiting, you know, and you did, and God brought you through that, which is incredible. So then you get to the U.S. That's interesting that you said like, man, it was sensitive. I didn't want to like, you know, I didn't really want to go there. And like for your mom and you to have this kind of revelation from God of like, it's time to go there. Like Emmanuel, like we got to go there now. It's so powerful. So, so you said you drifted a little bit, and you say that in the sense of like, it was just, the drifting for you was just a quietness. So, like what was the, what do you feel like changed whenever it was time for you to step out of the comfort zone? Like, what do you feel like God was calling you to do? Was it just like, hey, let's just speak up, or was there some other changes in your life, or what did that look like practically as it was kind of this new outspoken version, this like ready to share version of you was kind of coming to life?
I think for me, it definitely took some time for me to be able to like forgive. And I remember,
Interesting. Wow,
I remember one night I was just like so angry and was like, you know, basically just being a punk to my family. And I just felt the Lord telling me like, this is all because you still have unforgiveness in your heart. You need to let go of. And I was like, what could I possibly be unforgiving for? And he was like, the past. Like, you're still angry at your birth parents. You're still angry that you went through that. And you need to forgive. And so I just remember, you know, breaking down in my room and crying and, you know, basically just pouring it all out. Like, I forgive you for doing this to me, and I forgive all of these circumstances and all these things that I had to go through. And it was a real moment of growth for me, and it changed my perspective in life from for you to not forgive is for you to give whatever you're not forgiving power over your life.
Wow.
The second that you say, I forgive you and I'm going to show you grace, that's the second that you no longer become a prisoner to that.
So let me just kind of understand this scenario here. You're in Grove, Oklahoma when this is happening. You don't have a connection or any kind of contact with your birth parents. But God says to you, like, you need to forgive them. And it's not like he just gave you a phone number or an address for you to like reach out to them. This was something that it wasn't happening horizontally, so to speak. This was something that needed to happen vertically, right? Because you said like God needed to do something in you, but he needed you to let go of something else, right? So the forgiveness was, I mean, I don't know if you've ever had contact with or ever will contact your birth parents again, but God was saying like, hey, this is not about them. This is about our relationship, and I need you to let that go so that I can start doing powerful things through you. That's incredible. That's an incredible thing. And it was one of those in the quietness of your own room scenarios. Yep. And what's funny, I love that the kind of the openness of your story here. It came on the heels of a night where you were acting like a turd to your parents. You know? Like it's like in the moment of like, it wasn't like, okay, God's going to reward me in the moments that I'm being so good and like gracious and everything. It's like it's in our weakest moments that God's like, hey man, are you ready to listen to me? Are you ready to make moves here? Because I got some work for you to do, some things that you need to work at. That's hilarious to me. I'd say it's hilarious because I feel like I've been there before too. Had those like I've been a turd moments, you know, plenty of times. So man, tell me this: you come to Arkansas from Grove, Oklahoma. You come over to Arkansas, and you're through your freshman year now. You're looking ahead to sophomore year. Man, what has God been teaching you over the past year of your life?
I would say one big thing for me that God's been trying to teach me is patience and faith. being in like the realm that I'm in, you know, not everything goes your way as an athlete. And so, you know, I have gotten frustrated, and I have like second guessed myself and second guessed God's plan. And it's just that constant reminder of like, why are you doubting me now? Like, do you not remember what I've brought you through? Why would you doubt me in this circumstance? And so just being able to let go of things and being like, I'm not going to try to control everything in my life.
Yeah.
Like, God put me here for a reason. I felt like I was called to come to this university. And so whatever happens, happens. And, yeah, that's
good, man. So kind of the practice of patience, what I think I heard you say here, and you can tell me if I caught this right, is the relinquishing of control, specifically the things that I really want to have control of, right? Man, yeah, I've had a lot of conversations about like, you know, what does it mean to give up something to God, right? Like if you were to say like, I'm going to give up football to God, well, does that mean I have to quit football? No, it doesn't mean you have to quit football. It means that I'm going to play and train and practice open-handedly and say, God, this is for you, and I'm going to let you work it, bless it, touch it, do whatever you need to do with it, and hopefully make me the best God-glorifying football player that I can be. You know, that's what it means to give it up to God. It doesn't mean to quit, but it means to do it with God's blessing, which is, man, that's I think where patience is hard, because what you think is like, but I only have 4 years to do this, God. So if we could speed up the process a little bit, right? Like, you know, how many years do I need to wait before you're going to start blessing the game, God? Yeah. Because you know, 1 year's fine, but you know, 2, 3, like, that's why I feel like that patience practice is so critical. Because man, it's tough when we try to outpace what God is doing, you know. And then faith, you said faith. Like, what does that look like? What does it mean to practice faith in your context as an athlete, as a student at the U of A?
I would say college definitely brings a lot of like different temptations and that kind of stuff. And being in like certain environments that I've been in, like I've promised myself like I'm never going to drink alcohol, I'm never going to party, I'm never going to smoke, anything like that. And so being in like those environments, just continuing to be faithful to like what I've promised God, and being able to like say no, has been a huge thing for me. I mean, like I don't take it for granted, because I know a lot of people struggle with peer pressure and that kind of stuff. And so just keeping my faith in check in those moments where it's like, okay, I could go do this with my friends, but I know that I promised to God that I'm not going to do this. And I think for me, remembering like when I do feel alone, because a lot of the time I do, because it's like, okay, I can't be over here partying with my friends. So most of the time it's like, it's just me.
Right. The alternative is, so I'm alone.
Yeah.
Instead. Yeah.
Just being okay with that. Like being alone isn't a bad thing, and you're never truly alone if you're always invested in God. So I got gifted this like Billy Graham devotional. He's a huge mentor in my life, and I take every word he says for, you know, like it's a gem. And so just being able to have that devotional and being able to read it every day and being able to apply, you know, the things that he says to my life, and also putting the word of God into that devotional as well, has really helped me be able to change my perspective.
I love it, man. Yeah, I heard somebody said to me, faith is much about trust, right? It's I trust that God's plan is good. That's why I have faith, right? I'm trusting that God's plan and the way that he tells me to go about my business and do things is the best way to do things. And I think that when we remember that trust, and like, I love that you said remember. When I remember how far God has brought me, like why would he fail me now? Why would I stop listening to him now? Why would what he's telling me to do now result in anything other than abundance of life? Man, that's so good. Emmanuel, man, thank you so much for joining me in the studio. You have an incredible story. I know that I feel like I don't have to tell you to keep telling it, because you've been telling it, and this is just another place that you got to tell it. And I appreciate you coming in here and sharing that, man. And just excited to see what God continues to do in your life.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Thanks, brother. Man, we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks for listening to this episode of UARKFCA Timeout. If you enjoyed the story, learned something new, or both, consider subscribing and sharing this episode with a friend. You can follow us online at UARKFCA, and always remember to take the time out to recognize that you have a powerful story too.